Have you ever unwrapped a chocolate bar and just stopped for a second to wonder how it got there? I mean, it's this perfect, smooth, delicious thing. But its journey is absolutely incredible. It starts on a tree as a fruit that looks nothing at all like chocolate. So let's unwrap that delicious mystery together. And this is where our story begins, with this guy, the cacao pod. It's kind of rugged, hangs right off the trunk of a tree, and honestly, it might not look like much. But inside this humble-looking pod is the secret to one of the world's most loved treats. And get this, if you were to crack it open and taste what's inside right now, it would taste nothing, and I mean nothing, like chocolate.
So that's the big question, right? How in the world do we get from that green, bumpy pod to the smooth, rich, melt-in-your-mouth chocolate bar we all know and love? It's a journey that's part science, part patience, and, maybe a little bit of magic. All right, to solve this mystery, we have to go right back to the beginning. We're going to trace chocolate back to its very unlikely source. This is the story of how a simple fruit becomes a precious bean. So what exactly are we looking at here? Well, this is the cocoa pod, and it grows on the Theobroma cacao tree. The name literally translates to food of the gods, which is pretty fitting, don't you think? But if you crack one of these open, you won't find chocolate. Nope. You'll find these seeds, what we call cocoa beans, and they're all covered in the sweet, kind of sticky white pulp. And this whole thing is not a fast process. A tree takes 4, even 5 years just to be able to produce its first pods. Then, once a pod shows up, it needs about 6 months to ripen. And since they don't all ripen at once, harvesting has to be done super carefully, by hand, all year round. It's a real labor of love. Okay, so once the pods are harvested, this is where the first real transformation starts to happen. This next stage is where those raw, kind of bitter beans begin to develop the foundation of their amazing flavor. This step is called fermentation. The beans, along with all that pulp, get piled into big boxes or just heaped up under banana leaves, and they're left to sit there for about a week. It's a lot like making wine or even sourdough bread. You're letting tiny, invisible microbes do all the hard work, completely changing the chemistry of the beans. So here's how this magic actually works. First, naturally occurring yeasts eat all that sugary pulp, and that process creates a lot of heat. That heat then allows bacteria to create acetic acid. Yeah, the same stuff that's in vinegar. This is important because it stops the bean from sprouting. But here's the crucial part. This whole wild reaction kicks off these complex changes inside the bean, creating the very molecules that will later give us that classic chocolate flavor. And just to show you how important this is, get this. Fermentation is responsible for developing around 40% of the final flavor profile of chocolate. 40%! Without this step, you just have a pile of bitter, boring seeds. It's an absolutely essential process. But you have to stop that fermentation at just the right moment. So to lock in all those amazing new flavors and prevent any mold from growing, the beans are spread out to dry in the sun for 1 to 2 weeks. This brings their moisture content way down, from about 60% to just 7%, making them stable enough for their big trip to the chocolate factory. And now the beans are ready to leave the farm. They get bagged up and shipped off to what you could almost call an alchemist's kitchen, the chocolate factory. This is where heat and incredible machinery will finish the job. The very first thing that happens at the factory is roasting, and you can think of it just like coffee beans. The cocoa beans are roasted at really high temperatures. This is the step that finally unlocks all those flavor building blocks that were created during fermentation. It's what develops that deep, nutty, and oh so familiar chocolatey smell and taste. And look at this, it perfectly shows you the change. A raw, dried bean? It's still pretty bitter, acidic, and kind of soft. But after roasting, it becomes rich and complex. The color deepens from a pale purple to a beautiful dark brown, and the texture gets brittle, all ready for the next phase. So what's that next phase? Grinding. First, a machine cracks the beans, and a process called winnowing blows away the thin, papery shell. What you're left with is the inner part, known as the nib. These nibs are then ground and ground under massive pressure until the friction creates heat, melting the cocoa butter inside them. This turns the solid nibs into a thick paste called chocolate liquor. And don't worry, it's totally non-alcoholic. But that liquor is still pretty gritty. To get that silky smooth texture we all love, it has to go through a process called conching. And this quote really nails it. It's the final polish. It's basically a long, slow process of stirring and mixing the chocolate, sometimes for days on end. This refines all the particles and gets rid of any leftover acidic flavors, turning it from gritty to absolutely velvety.
We are so close now. The chocolate has its flavor, it has its perfect texture. Now it's time for the last few, very precise steps that turn this amazing liquid into the solid bar that we actually get to buy at the store. Now, this might just be the most scientific part of the entire journey. It's called tempering. You see, the cocoa butter and chocolate can form 6 different kinds of crystals, but only one of them gives you that perfect glossy shine and that satisfying snap when you break it. So tempering is this super controlled cycle of heating and cooling that forces only that one perfect crystal to form. If you get it wrong, you end up with dull, crumbly chocolate.
And it's from this perfectly tempered chocolate that we get all our final forms. You want dark chocolate? That's the purest version. Just the cocoa solids, cocoa butter, and sugar. For milk chocolate, you just add some milk solids into the mix. And what about white chocolate? Well, for that, you actually take out all the dark cocoa solids, leaving only the rich cocoa butter, which then gets mixed with sugar and milk.
So there you have it. From a strange fruit on a tree, through fermentation, drying, roasting, and tempering, it's a whole world of chemistry and incredible craftsmanship. So the next time you break off a square of chocolate, just pause for a second. See if you can taste the sun, the earth, and the absolutely amazing journey it took to get to you.